Hi, and welcome back to Beans and Bezels. If you browse a lot of watch related content on YouTube and Instagram, you probably already know of this brand and know where they fit in the watch world. They do a good job of treading the line between fashion watches, themed watches, and enthusiast watches. This brand doesn't take itself too seriously, loves to dabble with creative collaborations, and also has a pretty strong following now. I think the first I began following this brand was when they started releasing comic book collaborations, and I came very close to buying their first Batman watch a while ago. So when they reached out to me and asked if I would be interested in reviewing one of their latest releases, I didn't hesitate to say yes. And before we begin, I should say that I'm not familiar with anime or Astro Boy, and I decided to review this watch only because it looked very futuristic and looked very cool. Astro Boy was the first Japanese anime on TV and premiered in 1963 and ran up to 1966 with 193 episodes. Astro Boy is one of the most successful manga and animation series in the world, and is a sci-fi story set in the future and revolve around Astro Boy, an android. The Undone Astro Boy is a themed watch that has a Seiko VK63 meca-quartz chronograph movement, interesting materials like forged carbon and a transparent dial, interesting Lume design, and a retail price of $449. I don't need to return this watch after my review is complete, but this review was not paid for in any other way. Let's check it out. I measured the case to be 42mm in diameter, 46mm from lug to lug, and 12mm tall. The case is made of stainless steel but has a black DLC coating and a matte finish. Affordable watches with PVD coating tend to look cheap more often than not, but this DLC coating is definitely a step up, and the overall finishing is good. The mid-case extends out into a pair of very short lugs that dramatically curve down towards the wrist. The lug width is 22mm and the lugs are not drilled through. There is an outer rotating bezel made of forged carbon that looks great against the black DLC case. The bezel has a red triangle at the 12 o'clock position and lacks any other markings. I would have preferred if this bezel was fixed, as it does move in both directions and is friction fit. There is a flat sapphire crystal that has a good amount of AR coating. There are two crowns and two pushers, one crown at the 10 o'clock position that operates the inner rotating 12-hour bezel. This 6.3mm crown is easy to grip and operate and has a green ring. The 3 o'clock crown is similar and has a red ring. There are two pushers to activate the chronograph mechanism, and they're all pretty sturdy and don't feel cheap. Flipping it over, you have a screw-down case back with a frosted glass exhibition case back that has the Astro Boy logo on it. I think the frosted appearance is very cool, and being able to see the meca-quartz movement is more appealing than I would have expected. I think the meca-quartz inner workings fit well with the theme, considering Astro Boy is an android. This dial has a lot going on, so I'll try my best to cover all of it, working my way from the inner bezel to the hands. The 12-hour bidirectional friction-operated bezel is black with white numerals and a fine green accent running along the bottom of the bezel. The printing quality is decent, and I think the 12-hour bezel is a useful addition to most watches. There is an outer minute track in black that has white ticks for the minute markers and applied indices for the hour markers. The quality of printing is adequate, and this minute track is easy to read. The indices look like they're cantilevered and floating over the rest of the dial, but they're just applied onto the transparent layer below it. This is a great design choice, and I think goes a long way in making this dial look modern and futuristic. The finishing on the indices is good, and they're filled with lume. They're not the cleanest though. You then have the transparent dial base that is likely sapphire or some kind of transparent polycarbonate, and has a grid pattern printed over it that is also loomed. You can see the meca-quartz movement under it and also the rest of the date wheel. Astro Boy is printed below the 12 o'clock index along with some specs. The quality of printing is okay. You also have the brand's logo printed below the 6 o'clock index, which is executed well and doesn't attract too much attention. There is a date window at the 4:30 position that has an embedded steel frame, a black date wheel, and white text. I would have preferred a more symmetric date window layout, but they didn't have too much of a choice given the movement, so I think it's okay. This is a triple register chronograph with a running seconds hand at the 6 o'clock position, a 24-hour subdial at the 3 o'clock position, and an elapsed minute counter at the 9 o'clock position. All three registers have a black base, white text, and painted red hands. They're surprisingly easy to read. The The most interesting of the three is the 9 o'clock register and the printed Astro Boy artwork on it. This serves as the only obvious Astro Boy design motif and I think is the right amount of it. This logo also glows, which we'll get into in a bit. The handset is well proportioned and well finished for the money. The minute hand extends over the minute track and so does the seconds hand. The hands are high polished, faceted and filled with lume. The seconds hand is painted red and does not have any lumed elements. Overall the finishing may be good, but I think it's still a little more untidy than I would have liked. Overall, this is a busy dial, but with a watch like this, busy is what you want and busy is what you get. I like the sci-fi design theme, and the red and green color palette seems to work with the rest of the watch, and is a good throwback to Astro Boy's costume colors. On a sci-fi inspired theme watch, you expect to have good lume design, and I think this watch delivers. It uses bicolor lume on the dial, with green lume on the printed dial elements, and blue on the indices and hands. As you'd expect, the printed elements fade away quicker than the filled ones, but the filled ones are most important for legibility anyway. The Astro Boy artwork at the 9 o'clock index glows too, and I think this is pretty cool. The grid that lights up at the base of the dial goes a long way in delivering a futuristic design aesthetic. The lumed indices are generously filled and glow reasonably bright and have good longevity. The hands are well lumed too, and I don't have any complaints about the lume on this watch. This watch uses a Seiko VK63 meca-quartz movement. Whatever the genre of watch, I prefer a meca-quartz movement to any of the available affordable automatic or hand-wound mechanical chronograph movements. I like meca-quartz movements for watches under $500, and this one has great button action, a solid click, and a precise reset. At 42mm in diameter, this isn't a small watch, but I think the 46.5mm lug-to-lug width and the 12mm height make it accessible to smaller wrists too. I have no problems wearing this on my 6.5-inch wrist. I think the watch looks great on wrist, and I love the Cordura strap that ships with this watch, maybe one of my favorite Cordura straps so far, and even has a very interesting buckle design. The wrist presence is great, it's comfortable to wear, and the lack of a mechanical movement means it's very lightweight and disappears on your wrist. Overall, I like this watch, and I think it's well executed for the money and has good build quality. My only criticism is that I wish the bezel was fixed and didn't move at all, and maybe the dial was a bit more clean. I think the inner rotating 12-hour bezel was more than sufficient. Apart from that, I think this watch delivers an interesting and fun experience for your money, and feels like it would make a great gift for someone that's into Astro Boy. As always, thanks for watching, and don't forget to read my other reviews in the link below.